River Gambia, Gambi Bolongo. The river that forms a country called the Gambia. The Gambia is situated in a sub-region called West Africa, and West Africa is in a continent called Africa. The only country with the title THE, the river gets its source from Futajalan Island, which emptied itself in Senegal and come down to the Gambia. There are 1,200 creeks on the River Gambia. The River Gambia divided the country into two parts, the northern part and the southern part. The River Gambia is surrounded with mangrove swamps that are green and fertile. The mangrove swamps could be used for Thai antibiotics by our local women. The River Gambia is 3 times greater than the size of the country that we are seeing. The River Gambia gets its name from a Portuguese word, Gambia, which means trade or exchange. The river also gets its name as a result of colonialism. The Portuguese were the first people to land in the River Gambia. The first Portuguese explorer who came into the Gambia was Alviso Caramustu, who arrived in the coast of the Gambia in 1455. Then came Diego Gomez and Diego Camp. When the Portuguese came, they occupied an island here called San Domingo. San Domingo is an island which is situated in the North Bank region of the Gambia in a village called Albreda. When the Portuguese came, they founded this island called San Domingo, and one of their sailors, Andu, died in this island. They changed the name from San Domingo to Andu Island. San Domingo was a fisherman from a village called Sika. Whenever he was tired, he would go to the island and rest there. So the people of Alberta named the island after him, San Domingo. So the island, when it was captured in 1456 by the Portuguese, one of their sailors died there as a result of malaria and harsh climatic conditions. They changed the name from San Domingo to Andu Island. In 1651, the Portuguese came with their cannonballs and cannons. They attacked the islands. They took over the islands from the Portuguese. And the Portuguese controlled the island for several years. The French also had an interest in this island because it is strategically located for trade. So when the French came, they were less powerful. They were unable to take the island from the British. So the British were able to draw them out from that end. It was the people of Arbeda who gave them a piece of land where they built this warehouse. And it was in this warehouse where they will bring their goods such as textiles, mirrors, tobacco, gunpowders, and they used these items to exchange with our ancestors. That was slavery. In River Gambia also slave trade transpired in the River Gambia. Because in the River Gambia it was when the European came, they anchored or they stayed in most of the strategic locations. They were engaged in the buying and selling of goods and service called the transatlantic slave trade. And this was the trade that transpired between the European powers, the American, and of course the African people. It started in the 14th centuries and ended in the late 18th to 19th centuries. About millions or 12 millions of Africans lost their life in this transatlantic slave trade. In this transatlantic slave trade, it is called a triangular slave trade because it has 3 stages or 3 legs. The first stage is from Europe to Africa. It is when the Europeans will bring their goods, such as mirrors, tobacco, ginger, brought it here in Africa. And when they come to Africa now, they'll go to the river banks, the communities around the river banks. They were exchanging this item with human beings. At the first stage, it was our ancestors, the fellow Gambians or Africans, the powerful rulers and kings or chiefs. They'll go and capture the less powerful people. They will give it to the Europeans in exchange for guns, gunpowders, textile, mirrors, sugarcane, and of course ginger. But when the Europeans realized the process was very slow, they themselves will come with their slave equipment like chains, like guns, attacking, destroying the interior of African countries or communities, and they will lodge or they will sport slaves. The strong men and women, when they are spotted, they were put inside the boat, and in the Gambia here, the boat will go to the island called Andrew Island, which was later captured by the British. So it was in this island where the slaves were suppressed. They are physically suppressed, both physically, mentally, and spiritually. They were allowed to encamp for 4 weeks, 4 nights, with little water and little food. The strong one were able to make it, but the weaker one, they died in the island, and they were thrown inside the sea. And the British or the European, they'll park the slave, the African slaves, or the Gambian slaves inside the boat, and then the ship will bound to Senegal, Gore Island, in order to better locate the mouth of the River Gambia. So the journey from Africa here to America is called the Middle Passage. That is the most difficult or the most sad part that transpired here in the Gambia. Before the coming of the Europeans, the Gambia and Senegal form one region called Senegambia. They share the same people, the same religion, the same culture, and the same traditions. When the European came, they want to occupy more territories because the concept was the more land you occupy, the more powerful you become. There was a greater competition between all European tribes as the British, the French, the Portuguese, and the Germans. So the French, who were only interested in the land side in Africa here, they took the greater part of the land, which they named as Senegal. The British were only interested in the Atlantic Ocean because it is navigable from the Gambia to Europe. They were only interested in the Atlantic Ocean. They took the smaller part of the land, which they called the Gambia. When the Gambia was, in 1902, the Gambia and Senegal were finally divided. As a result of the small size and the population of the country, it created economic and social problems. Some Gambians, such as the Akus and the British merchant, they said the Gambia should be given to the French for it to be added to Senegal. But some Gambians also, they opposed to that proposition, that the Gambia should not be given to Senegal. So the Gambia remained as a sovereign state, and later in the later years, it was colonized by the British. So, as a result of the Anglo-French rivalry between the British and the French, in 1814, they signed an agreement called the Paris Peace Treaty. It was in this Paris Peace Treaty, it recognized the British control over River Gambia and the French control over River Senegal in order to end the long enmity between the French and the British. So after the Paris Peace Treaty, the British decided to return back to their old base, which was James Island. And at this time, there was a need to suppress the Atlantic slave trade and, of course, to police or to protect the river from other European intruders. In 1816, 23rd of April, a British captain called Alexander Grant, he went to Batos and obtained Banjul from the king of Kombo called Solinjata and Tumani Bojang. Batos was obtained by the annual payment of 103 bars of iron, which was equivalent to 25 British pounds. And when Batos was founded, Alexander Grant went to Sierra Leone. He brought in masons, carpenters, and contractors. When they came into the Gambia, some were engaged in burning oyster shell for land. And some people also were engaged to mine stones at Dog Island, which was 7 miles away from Batos. And before the rainy season ended, they completed constructing major roads or major public places in Batos, such as the Judicial House. They built Judicial House. They also built McCarthy Square, now called the Governor's House. At that time, there was a governor called Governor Sir Charles McCarthy. He went to England and appealed to the Christian missionaries to come down to the Gambia and introduce Christianity as well as Western education. Following that appeal, the Quakers, the Roman Catholics, the Methodists, and the Anglicans, and the Seventh-day Adventists, they started coming to the Gambia to spread Christianity. The first batch of missionaries that arrived in this country called the Gambia were called the Quakers. The Quakers arrived in 1821. Then 2 months later came the Methodists. The Methodists, when they came, they built schools, they built clinics. They also construct some roads in this country. A school was built called the Methodist Boys High School, and in later years, another school was also built called the Methodist Girls High School. These two schools were later joined together and now called Gambia Senior Secondary School in 1959. Then the Roman Catholics also came. They built schools such as St. Joseph, St. Peter's, and Augustine's. Then we have the 7 Days Adventure. These are all Christian missionaries that came here in this country. And when they came, they don't stop at building schools. They are also engaged in freeing slaves. They pay money in order to free slaves. So finally, the Gambia was colonized by the Europeans or the British for 400 years. And within these 400 years, they built only few schools, only few roads in these 400 years. The Bainunkas were the first inhabitants or the first local people to inhabit this place. They are the first people to stay in an island called Banjulo. Banjulo is an island infested with baobab trees. That's why when it was occupied or captured in 1816, the British decided to rehabilitate the place, which now become the capital city of the Gambia, now called Banjul. But the first name of the island was called Banjulo, which the name was driven from the local people because it was infested with baobab trees. So when it was captured in 1816, they changed the name to Batos after Governor Batos or Sir Charles Batos. Then when we gained our independence, they changed the name from Batos to Banjul. And it is the capital city of the Gambia. The Gambia is having 8 different local governmental areas, which include Banjul, and of course, after Banjul, then you have Serekunda, the most densely populated area in the Gambia and the largest market in the country, that is Serekunda. Then in the Gambia also here, we have different types of ethnic groups, ranging from the Mandinkas, who came from the ancient empire of Mali. And this empire was occupied or was founded by Sunjata Keita, who defeated Sumangur Kante in a famous battle called Krinan 1235. So because of the brutality and the cruelty of Sumangur Kante, the Mandinka people decided to migrate down to the Senegambia region and stay here in this country. They occupy about 40% of the Gambian population so far. They are the largest ethnic group here in this country. The Mandinkas practice rich culture. They are having rich culture. And in the Mandinka ethnic groups, they have different types of culture, like they have Kankurangs, and the Kankurangs are of two types. We have the Fara Kankurangs and the Jamba Kankurangs. So the Fara Kankurang is believed to have a supernatural powers, which do not come frequently. Then we have the Jamba Kankurang, which comes out to entertain people. Then in the same country called the Gambia, Gambi Bolongo, named by our ancestors, we have a tribe called the Fulas, who migrated from the Futajalon Island and stay in the Senegambia region between the Gambia and Casamance. They were led by the Fula warrior called Alpha Molot, who was an elephant hunter as well as a warrior. He led the Fulas against the king of Kabu called Mama Jankewali Sanit, who Jankewali Sanit was defeated in a battle called Kansala. So the Fula also decided to conquer different Mandinka towns, which they added to their state. And finally, they established the Fulani Empire in 1870. And the Fula also, we are having rich culture here in this country, and also there are different types of Fulas now in the Gambia. And of course, we also have another ethnic group called the Jolas. The Jolas are believed to be originated from Zimbabwe, because they are believed to have some common features with the people who live in Zimbabwe. They are called Ajamatao. So Ajamatao is the original name of the Jolas, but the Mandinka people call them the Jolas, means someone who's payback. And in the Jolas political organization, they have the Ais and the Kanda. So the Ai here is the female ruler, while the Kanda here is the male ruler. They practice a decentralized or a centralized system of government, or a fragmentary system of governance. So we also have the Soninkes, who are called the non-believers, and their other names are called the Sarahulis, who are the true founders of the ancient Ghana Empire, which was attacked and destroyed by the Almoravid invasions in 1076. The Soninkes came down to the Gambia region in order to find a peaceful place in where to stay. They also practice a rich culture here in this country. So also we have another ethnic group called the Wolofs. The Wolof, who are believed to be migrated, or who are believed to come from the Sahara Desert. They came down to the Senegambian region, and the Wolofs also, they settle mostly in Saint Salum, Jolof, and also Kayor. In the same country called the Gambia, we have an ethnic group called the Akus, which are the smallest or the minority ethnic group here in the country. They are the descendants of the free slaves who were captured here in Africa and taken to America. When the slave trade was abolished in 1807, the Akus were repatriated back here in Africa, and they stay in Sierra Leone, Freetown, and Liberia. Because Sierra Leone was highly congested, they were brought here in the Gambia, and they stay in Batos. They also stay in Bara and, of course, Joytown. That's where the Akus are mainly found, Lamen as well as Bakaut. So the Akus also, they have a rich culture here in the Gambia. And they also have masquerade like they are masquerade such as the Huntins and the Lantern as well as the Fanans. So the Akus also another ethnic groups which is found in the Gambia, of course. And in the Gambia, there are different historical sites. We have the James Island now called Kunta Kinte Island, which get its names from Andrew Island, which was captured first by the Portuguese. In the same Gambia also, we have the stone circle found in Wasu, in the North Bank region of the Gambia. We also have what they call the Jinek Island. In the same Gambia also, we have Kartong Folonko, where people normally go and do their traditional worshipping. We also have the Abuko Nature Reserve, where we have the monkeys, the baboons, the lion, the zebras, and other animals as well. There are different bird species here in the River Gambia. So the River Gambia also is surrounded by mango swamps that are very green and fertile, where our indigenous people can go and have access to oyster cells. And this oyster cell here could be used for lime. That's why when the Portuguese captured James Island, they will ask our people to pound this oyster cell. They use this oyster cell to construct the island. Because our local women will go and pound this island given to the Europeans. The Europeans will use this oyster cell for construction purpose. And in the same Gambia or River Gambia, we also have Fort Blen. And Fort Blen, which was founded in 1826 by the British in order to suppress the slave trade. And in the same River Gambia, we have different types of fish, ranging from the tilapias, the bonga fish, the barracuda. We also have the catfish, the angel fish. There are different types of fish, of course, in this River Gambia. The River Gambia is divided the country into two parts. The southern part and, of course, the northern part. And the southern part of the River Gambia, that's where you have the Banjuls, you also have the Joswangs, you have the Banjul, you have the Lamens, you have the Lamen Lodge, as well as Fonis, go all the way to Casamas end. And the southern part of the Gambia is closer to Casamas than the northern part. Then in the northern part of the Gambia, you have Bara, you have Esau, you have different types. You have Nyomis, the upper Nyomi and the lower Nyomis. You have the Kerawan, the Baribus, all the way to the border between the Gambia and Senegal in the North Bank region. And the River Gambia is having is salty water. The other part of the River Gambia also is fresh water around the Makati end, where the people could go and ford hippos. And the River Gambia, or this fresh part of the water, could be used for irrigational purpose, for agriculture. Gambian people use River Gambia for different purposes and for different reasons. The people use River Gambia for fishing in order to earn a living. The Gambian people also can use the River Gambia for transport, like to cross between Bara and Banjul, which is 7 miles away. The people of the Gambia also use this river in order to find different varieties of birds. The River Gambia is also used to attract tourists, because in the River Gambia there are different islands or bolongs, and of course there are bolongs that are found in the River Gambia. We have the Bintam bolongs, we have the mini young bolongs, we have the Sofanyama bolongs, we have the mini young bolongs. So the River Gambia is very attractive for tourists because there are different types of bird species, and in the River Gambia also you can easily find crocodiles, you can even find different types of animals in the River Gambia. The indigenous people, they use River Gambia for salt mine, of course. That's Lame Ebolong at Das Lame. The people around that end could use the salt, the water, the sea salt, in order to provide or to produce what they call salt. Before the coming of the Europeans, our ancestors were using the river for different purposes. They'll go down to the seashore and dig on the ground in order to have access to the salt rock. The salt rock were later broken down into different pieces, and the salt was later sieved from the sand, and then salt is obtained. In the River Gambia also, people can use the mangroves for construction purpose. The River Gambia also is very attractive to the Europeans. That's why there was an Anglo-French rivalry between the British, the French, and of course the Portuguese. But the country was later colonized by the Portuguese for 400 years. And within these 400 years, they built schools and they also built hospitals, little development in the area of infrastructure. And when we gained our independence, Karaba Jawara became the Prime Minister. And then on the 24th of April 1970, we gained our Republican status. So the Gambia was colonial ruled by Karaba Jawara for a period of 32 years. And during his tenure as a ruler or as a leader, he developed this country. He built a bridge here called Denton Bridge now. And of course, Karaba Jawara was coup d'etat by military officers in 1994 led by Lieutenant Jammeh. So Jammeh also, he was ousted from power in 2016 by the coalition government. So the Gambia is also part of many international organizations which comprise of the ECOWAS. ECOWAS was formed in Lagos in 1975, which was established by General Gowon and General Ayademad. The Gambia also is part of an international organization called OAU. OAU was established in Ethiopian capital called Addis Ababa in 1963. The same country called the Gambia is also part of the United Nations as well as the Commonwealth. And also United Nations, which was founded in America in 1945. The Gambia is a friendly country. The people of the Gambia are described as, or are called, the friendly people. That's why the country is described as the smiling coast of Africa. Perhaps the lowest country was the most friendliest country in Africa. The country experienced its first military coup d'etat in 1981 when a retired civil servant called Kuka Samasani decided to overthrow a constitutionally elected government of Karaba Jawara in 1981. And at this material point in time, Karaba Jawara was in England to attend the wedding of Prince Charles and Lady Diana. Because at this point also the government of Senegal, they are already in the Senegal confederations. So Karaba Jawara appealed to his Senegalese counterpart, advocating for the President Biden. He decided to send his soldiers in the Gambia. When they came, they were able to remove the imposter and of course put the government of Karaba Jawara in place. And Karaba Jawara continued to rule the country for decades, 32 years. And finally he was overthrown by the military officers led by Jammeh through a coup d'etat in 1994.